I'm pretty sure I have mentioned, as a child, saying to my father, rather my father saying to me, "You're my favourite daughter." And me looking at him and saying, "But I'm your only daughter." Even then I actually was not sure. I just knew him so well. And there were other little things as well. But, oh gosh, my mind is all over the place again, actually. Remembering my father saying that they had thought I was fibroid growth, not a baby. Which is to say, my mother did not know she was pregnant. I think I have said this before. I wonder who else knew she was pregnant, if anyone. Her cousin Mac, for example, never did know, although he knew she had a son. When I was in my late teens, her cousin Mac did not know that she had ever had a second child. And wrote a letter saying so to a woman who sent it on to me. I have said this before long ago. She didn't know she was pregnant. She had a blood transfusion 2 months before I was born. Now, a doctor said to me, well, surely that would have done her good. Well, she's the doctor. But a blood transfusion 7 months pregnant? Doesn't that signal some kind of a major problem? You see, I'm still not sure. Yes, I'm sure that my brother and I look alike. But there is so much else, so many other things. My breathing is absolute crap. It's funny how, complete tangent here. With this disease you can talk and yet feel as if you're not breathing. And it's a very, very unpleasant feeling. Like a sort of concrete block across your rib cage, and you feel as hot air is being blown into your lungs even when it isn't. Anyway, I'm talking. Back on topic. Sorry to be boring. Babies. And where they came from, well, you know, I do know the facts of life. I have had two. And no abortions, either. 2 pregnancies, 2 children. Why do I feel it necessary to mention that? I'm a feminist, aren't I? Still on babies, so I guess I'm still more or less on the same topic. Okay, my mother came back from Singapore. Singapore was the last port of call, wasn't it, I think? She was flown from Kelang to Ipoh, that's Malaya, both of those. And then ordered back to, it didn't make, her movements didn't make sense to me. In the papers that I have. Anyway, doesn't matter particularly where she was coming back from. Okay. By this time, I assume she knows she's pregnant. Which would be, by the way, around the time that my father changed his name. Crossed his name off, off at one address, substituted another. Everything I've mentioned. And in fact, those actions needn't be the actions of a guilty Nazi. They could simply be the actions of a guilty adulterer, I suppose. Except that he kept contact with Enid, always. And I know he did. And I don't believe he wanted to leave her. And he didn't have to. If he can refuse a blood test for paternity of Karen, if he can say, oh, I'm not her father, and yet refuse a blood test, why couldn't he have done the same with my mother? And in fact, he insisted always that he did not know his blood group. So presumably he did do the same with my mother. If I'm correct, and she had a baby in 46, and I'm certain that she did, for so many reasons. Well, if I were her, I would have seriously considered abortion. But of course, there's the other possibility that did come up, and that is that they married in Ceylon. En route home. I'm convinced that is where they spent the 6 months between January and July of 46. Ceylon doesn't fit in anywhere else. And he came back nut brown. She was a little less tanned, but she was awfully tanned for England. If she thought she was married, and that's possible, but then, it couldn't be registered in England because, it was lost, or it was in the trunk that got lost, or she was bitter about that forever. If she thought she was married, no need to abort. And then again, of course, she did consider herself to be a Christian, which might have precluded that idea. But then I remember, and this will sound silly to anyone who did not know my father and the relationship I had with my father. He did give me that book, Rose Timpson, and Rose Timpson was an abortionist, and I felt there was a message in that book. I took a lot of different messages from that book. In fact, I didn't know what precisely he was trying to tell me. But I knew he was trying to tell me something, because it just wasn't his kind of book. It was definitely for me. It was definitely to tell me something, which he often did by that means, by giving me particular books to read. If an abortionist did not enter my mother's life anywhere, then the point of Rose Timpson was her daughter, Kathleen, who was seduced by a man called Dick. A few other points in there besides. Let me assume for a minute that on that day in Piccadilly, the idea was to register a marriage that had occurred in Ceylon. And I can imagine my father getting there and saying, where's the certificate? Oh my God, it must have been in the trunk. I actually can imagine that. And my mother coming away realizing that officially she's not married. Which I think is where Amelia Noyes did enter the picture. I could get fairly easily into my mother's mind. I spent so much time hearing the contents of it. In their entirety, pretty much. Little less easy to get into that era and her background. Would the fact that she had had a baby which had died, and I've just been over this in a bloody video before, tie her to the man who had fathered it? Would her brother... did he know about that? Well, yes, I think he did. Because he knew about Amelia Noyes. Definitely. He was acquainted with that family. Might he have said to her, well, you've made your bed, now you lie in it. Is this video all over the place? I'm not sure. Still thinking about babies and their origins, not in the way of a man and a woman lying together, as I think the Bible puts it. That's not what I mean at all. As I say, Lebensborn, suitable Germanic families, artificial insemination, all kinds of possibilities here. Babies imported from God knows where. But to get two babies to look alike, if you are not the parents, you would have to use the same mother, wouldn't you? And perhaps the same sperm. Somebody help me here. Two heads are better than one, and the more the merrier, actually.